Welcome to the Candle Business Coach Podcast, a show about the craft of candle making and small business. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I'm a candle maker, mum of three, and kindness advocator. Join me as I dive into all things candles and small business and deliver advice and tips to you in episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Are you on the list to get my daily motivation emails? Every day I'll send you a message that is designed to help keep you focused on taking action toward your goals. Sign up using the link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by my free ebook, the Candle Business Marketing Kickstarter Kit. Inside this free ebook, you'll learn to identify your blocks of time to dedicate to your candle business. Plus, there are several tips and tricks for re-engaging past customers and attracting new customers into your business so you can grow your business and reach your goals. Check out the link in the show notes for your copy. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Today we have the very lovely Kelly Barron with us for a conversation that I believe is probably one of the most important ones we'll have on the podcast. We'll be talking about a few different things, but mainly we'll focus on mental health, women in business, and of course, candles. So Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Kirsty. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me too. It's really great. I'm so glad I've got this opportunity to talk about things that are really important to me, but also important to a lot of people as well. So my name is Kelly. I'm from Mornington in Victoria, and I run a business called Go With The Flow Resin Art. So what I actually do is I'm a resin art teacher, and I've been doing that for about 4 years now, but I really wanted to introduce something different to the people that I teach to. So the majority of my students are NDIS participants, and I have a very strong focus on the mental health side of things. So we do a bit of art therapy, and as I say, been doing resin art for a while, but wanted to introduce something different. And like everybody, I love candles. I love them. So I, about 2 years ago, started to study, learned all about how to make them, learned how to make them, and then introduced candle making into my classes as well. So yeah.
I love it. And with your candle making journey, did you find that the process was overwhelming to begin with, or did you sort of hit the ground running, having already had that creative background?
I think having a creative background definitely was helpful for sure. But absolutely take my hat off to any candle makers. There was a lot to learn. It's very easy to get caught up in looking on YouTube, and YouTube is a great resource. You can learn so many wonderful things on YouTube, but it's very easy to get caught up in it and look and think, I just need to do this, this, and this. And candle making is a science. There is so much work that goes into it. And I think people really don't quite appreciate that when they're holding that vessel in their hand, how much work and how much calculation has gone into getting it absolutely perfect. So I think definitely, as I say, having a creative background definitely helped, but it did take me a long time. I've got to say, I thought it was going to be a lot easier. I did a lot of stinkers, but eventually got the perfect formulation. Took a very long time and months and months and months of testing before I released anything, because I really wanted to make sure that, you know, what I was doing was a top quality product and also safe as well.
That's right. It's always important to have at the forefront that it's a safe candle that we're producing for our customers, because at the end of the day, what the product that we're creating is creating a flame in their home, surrounded by all their possessions and their house. So if we're not doing the proper testing and making sure that we're creating a safe product, it can have disastrous results.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I say, there is so much that goes into it, and it's a very serious thing. And like you say, you never want to be selling your product to someone and potentially there could be a disaster involved. So lots and lots of study, lots of research, lots of time, lots of money, but lots of fun along the way as well. For sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like with any creative outlet, there is the investment that it takes to buy the supplies and then to enjoy the journey of actually creating that end product. The difference with a hobby as opposed to a business is that the product you're creating, you're wanting to sell at the end, but you still need to enjoy the journey of the testing phase, even though it is challenging at times and it can be quite frustrating. You need to still enjoy that process so that when you've created the end product, you know how much effort has gone into creating that beautiful candle.
Absolutely.
So one of the reasons that we connected was through Instagram, and I love how technology and social media can bring people together from all around the world. Although it's funny, we actually only live about an hour and a half away from each other. So of all the places in the world, we're actually not too far away from one another. But one of the things that really stood out to me when you messaged me on Instagram was that you wanted to talk about the mental health side of business, not only in business, but in life as well. And I know you've got some professional and personal experiences with that. So do you want to share with the listeners what your professional experience is with the mental health field?
Sure. So my job before I started really looking at candles, and the job that I've done for 11 years is I worked in a very busy psychology practice as an intake coordinator. So intake coordinator is the person it's the front of house. It's the person that when a new client would contact us with any issues at all, I'm the person that they speak to. I have to gather a whole lot of information and then I guess work out for them what's the best path to lead them down, who's the best practitioner, their history, etc., etc. Now, although it was a wonderful job and I really, really loved it, it was a very hard job to do, and I did it for 11 years, and I reached the point where I run on autopilot a lot, and I reached the point where I was just burning out. But I was always saying to myself, no, you can do it. Keep going. People need you. And I ended up just pushing myself to the point where I became quite unwell. And to the point of sometimes sitting down with the family and bursting into tears at the dinner table because I just had way too much on my plate. And I made the decision to resign from the clinic, which was a very, very tough decision, and move into teaching full time, which is now what I'm doing.
Amazing. And I can only imagine the challenges that you would have faced during your journey, even though you loved what you did. What you do now brings you so much joy and is a different level of, I guess, way of helping people that have mental health struggles.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Would you feel comfortable sharing with us what your personal experience has been with mental health?
Yeah, I sure would. And I think that's a really important thing, is sharing stories. One thing that when I resigned from the clinic, although it was wonderful to not have that stress in my life, I've got to admit I missed it. I missed working with people that are challenged, particularly the mental health side. I have an adult son with a disability. So I missed working with people with disabilities and mental health issues. It's funny to say, you think that I would have ran for the hills and never wanted to touch on it again, but I really missed it. I missed the interaction. I'm a very strong empath, which is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes it can be wonderful to be able to relate to people, but sometimes when you do absorb way too much from other people, it can really, really have a detrimental effect. Me personally, I was diagnosed with depression after having my second son. Unlike a lot of people, my depression didn't go away. So I now live with depression and anxiety. And I was also fairly recently diagnosed with ADHD, which is something that there's a lot of things, I guess, about myself that I would put down certain, I guess, habits, behaviors, thoughts, my thought process. I put them down to having depression and anxiety, but I guess I always knew that something else must have been going on there. And I ended up getting formally tested, and I was diagnosed with ADHD. And it answered so many questions for me. It really did. I suddenly had this understanding about why my thoughts drift off sometimes, why I can't stay on task sometimes, why I think the way that I do, and the pressure that I put on myself. And running a small business and having all this stuff going on, I personally, I call it my superpower. I really do. I don't look at it as a curse. I don't look at it as, oh gosh, I can't do anything now. I certainly don't write myself off, but I look at it as my superpower. I use my empathic skills to engage with people. One thing that I do in my classes, both my resin art and my candle making classes, I always start the classes with telling people about myself. I can read a room very well. And what I've really found, and it's the most enriching feeling, it really is that if I'm sitting with a group of people and I start talking about myself and I mention that I have depression, anxiety, people are instantly comfortable to talk about themselves and their own mental health issues. And for me, that is the greatest feeling in the world, for people around you to know that it's okay. It's fine. If you've got something going on, it's okay. It doesn't have to be a mental illness. It can just be a bad day. But what I love is opening up that conversation. And people, I guess what I want from this experience today is for people to just really listen to it and say, you know what, that's me. Oh my gosh, I'm okay to have a really crappy day. I'm okay if I go into my studio and I go to pour my candles and I just can't get my head around it, or I'm feeling really sad or feeling really glum. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We can still go on. The great thing about having a bad day, I always say, is the next day is usually better. If you're lucky enough, the next day is usually better.
Absolutely. And knowing that the peaks and valleys that we experience on our mental health journey, they're not permanent. There's certainly something that if you're experiencing struggles or challenges along your path in life, and you can have that self-awareness to realize something's not quite right and you just can't put your finger on it, to go and speak to your GP or to a counsellor or someone that can give you that professional advice and support you in perhaps a diagnosis, but also just being a listening ear to talk through what you're going through. There's no point being a martyr or trying to do it all. It's about leaning on one another and supporting each other on our journeys through life.
Absolutely. It is. And I understand there may be some people that might have difficulties reaching out to their GP or even contacting a clinic. Once you've got your diagnosis and you've got your referral and you want to engage with a practitioner or a psychologist, I understand better than anyone how challenging that can be, especially during COVID. The time that I was working at the clinic was during COVID. And look, to kind of put it into perspective as far as the demand when COVID was really, really prominent. When I first started at the clinic, people would call up and need an appointment, and we'd usually find something within maybe 2 to 3 days, a week maximum. And that over the years, obviously, our clinic got busier and busier. And then come COVID, fast forward to COVID, we had people that were reaching out to us that desperately needed that contact. They needed that professional help, and we couldn't get them in for 6 to 8 weeks. And I understand. Wow. It's gut-wrenching for us as people working in the sector. For us, it was really, really difficult. So for people who are facing that sort of issue, it might be, I just can't talk to my GP about it. I don't have the resources to go and see a psychologist. Look around you, find something. There's a lot of free resources around you. Now, I am very big on yoga and meditation. I meditate every single day. That doesn't mean that I sit down with my big yoga cushion and I hum and chant and make funny noises. I don't even have to do that. I can take 5 minutes a day, as long as I'm away from any stress that I have in my life. It might be a little spot down in my backyard. It might be just out in my little outdoor area in my garden. I'll put the dogs away so that I know they're not sort of jumping all over me and getting excited and distracting me. And just closing my eyes and breathing, focusing on the breath, even for 5 minutes a day, it is a start. And it's a very, very effective tool. I know meditation is a difficult thing for some people. I understand that. And people sometimes just can't sit still. But the more you do it, the better you will get at it, like anything in life. So there are a lot of free resources around, even if it's shutting yourself away from all the stresses. And if you don't have an opportunity, you might have little kids at home and you can't go for a walk and take 30 minutes every day. Walk 3 houses up, but walk slowly. Take nice slow footsteps, breathe with every step, and then come back down again. Even if it's just 5 minutes out of your day, as long as you're removing yourself from that stress and taking yourself away from that situation, anything that is causing you to not feel as good as you really deserve to feel, it helps. Anything. There's a lot of free resources and things around you for those people that, might find it a little bit challenging to get into a psychology clinic or
struggle to make that initial step, because it's so hard obviously you need to have enough self-awareness to be able to look into yourself to see if there's something that might not be quite right in terms of how you're feeling. But then to put your pride and your ego to the side so that you can say, I actually do need some assistance, and then go out and seek it. that can be a really big step for some people. So knowing that there are some other ways that we can promote self-care and incorporate reflection in our day is paramount.
Absolutely. And connecting with other people is a really, really important thing as well. For me, I'm all about, not about competition, but community. That's kind of my thing that I live by is it's not about competition. I'm about community. I don't look at other candle makers and other small business people and think, oh, they're my direct competition. What are they doing? And I don't put my energy into focusing on what they're doing and are they taking my ideas? I don't care. Whatever they choose to do themselves is whatever they choose to do. For me, it's about community. So reaching out to other people. I love chatting to people, and that's why I reached out to you initially, because I absolutely love your podcast. And I love the guests that you've had on. I've had some good giggles along the way. You've had some really, really great people on, and I've learned a lot as well. And I think just, getting a group of people together, like-minded people, even if my goal is to eventually one day get a little group together. And I've got a beautiful studio at my home, and I'd love to have people come into the studio and sit down and have a coffee and just have a chat. And we know what it's like to talk about candles. We love it. But hubby might come home, your friend might pop around, your sister might come to visit and, oh, look at this fragrance, isn't it beautiful? And you know what they're thinking, oh, here we go again, not another candle conversation. So being with those people in our community, and I'm not just talking about candles, I'm talking about women in small business, I'm talking about everyday life, just to have that conversation, reach out to somebody, have a chat. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here. I'm very good at that. But I'd love it. It'd be something that I'd love to do, even if maybe over Zoom or something, just sit down and just get the girls together and have a chat in half an hour. So what did you do this week? Oh, I did a market. How was it? Oh, it was great. Was it terrible? It was, I think it's really, really important to just be with your own tribe, be with people that get you and have an interest in what you have an interest in as well. I don't know. Do you feel that you sometimes start talking about candle things and people around you are, okay, here we go?
Yeah, I'm for the listeners, I'm nodding quite strongly. Yes, because you're so passionate about about candles and candle making and different wicks and the wax and the fragrance, and you fall in love with the process and you try and share that love and that joy with someone outside of the candle world. And even if they completely support you, they don't always understand exactly what's involved, and they can't always empathize with you as to the struggles you might be having in your business or in your testing phase. So to connecting with the tribe, as you say, of people that are in the same journey as you, but perhaps at different stages of that journey, is so important, because you can help those that are behind and you can look for advice to those that are ahead of you. And knowing that you've got a group of people that you can find that you can connect in with, and that's whether it's online or in person, is so important. And it just makes the journey, the experience so much more pleasurable.
Absolutely. And COVID was a stinker of a thing, something that obviously we all wish that never had happened. But there's also a lot of things that I think we learned from COVID. And one of those is communication, Zoom, this thing called Zoom that people in business would use it quite rarely. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, do you want to catch up? Let's go for a coffee. No, let's just do it over Zoom.
Well, that's what we're using right now to record this episode. Yeah,
that's it. That's it. Might sound like I'm sitting right next to Kirsty, but I'm not. I'm about an hour and 45 minutes away from her, but we're still having that conversation.
That's
right. It's like you're next to me, and that's just, it's crucial. It's so important. It feels as real to me sitting, looking at my computer screen, talking to you, Kirsty, as sitting next to you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that that's the joy of the time of life that we're living in, that we have this technology available to us, that we can have real, deep, beautiful, genuine conversations with people. Even if we haven't met them before, we can still form those connections and really establish beautiful friendships.
100%. I agree with that for sure.
So how important is taking care of your mental health in life and in business?
Well, look, I think it's crucial. I think as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and obviously men do as well. We all do, human beings, we do. But as women and as a woman who has a small business, we all just naturally, instinctively put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything for everybody. I woke up this morning, a great example, a real life thing is I woke up this morning and I thought, okay, it's Friday. Now, Friday for me is I don't cook on a Friday night, never. I call it Fresh Air Friday. So in my house, it's whatever you can find, you eat. But my sister's coming to visit. So I thought, I know that she loves my satay stir fry. So I might, you know what? I'll put takeaway on hold on, do my satay stir fry. So on the day off that I would normally, on the Friday that I would normally be not even thinking about preparing for dinner, I had my fridge open. I'm looking, have I got broccoli? Check. Have I got carrots? Check. Have I got, perfect. And I'm putting all this pressure on myself to cook this meal for my sister who hasn't asked for it. She doesn't care. She'd eat a bowl of rice. She really doesn't care. But that's what we do. We put so much pressure on ourselves just to keep everybody happy, to keep things going, to look after everybody else and to stay on top of everything. Because as soon as we forget about it, as soon as we drop the ball, oh gosh, you know what? That washing's piling up. Oh, that means tomorrow when I was going to sit down and dedicate 2 hours to admin time, I'm going to be in the laundry and I've got to remember to change that load over otherwise. And I'm sure that people listening can relate. You're constantly going. The brain is just constantly going. I've heard people on your podcast, when you've asked about, a typical day for them, I've heard them say, they get themselves organised and maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, they'll get down and they'll make the candles or they'll do their admin work, and because that's what we do. So I think the importance of taking that time for ourselves, I think it is absolutely paramount. Now, it took me a really long time to learn that. I'm 51 years old. I know I look 20, but I'm 51 years old. My kids are adult kids. I still have them both living at home. As well as I'm a full-time carer for my dad. He lives with us as well. So we've got 5 adults in our house, plus I run a small business. 2 small businesses really. There's a lot going on there. There's so much going on. So the importance of just stopping and stepping away and taking a break is absolutely paramount. I'm very lucky. I've got a really good support network around me. My husband and my children are, they're my fan club. They are beautiful. When I'm having my bad days, when my depression is here, and I call it clouds, the way that I describe it is clouds, when the clouds are here. Because when I am in the depths of depression, I feel like I've got clouds hanging over me. And everywhere I go, these clouds follow me. And nothing I do makes me feel better. Nothing. And that is what depression is. I can't magically, as I mentioned earlier, go for a walk, you're going to feel fantastic. Sit and do some meditation, your depression's going to be gone. That depression doesn't work like that. Anxiety, it's not like that. You need to allow it to be, and you need to let it pass. So in the depths of it, what I say is be in it and allow it to be. And that's kind of a motto that I live by. Just be in it and allow it to be. I have some days where I've scheduled coming into my studio to do a pour, to teach a class, and I just can't do it. I have days where I wake up and think, you know what? I can't do it. I'll admit sometimes I push myself and I'll get it done. And I feel great when I've got it done. But gee whiz, it takes an enormous amount of power for me to say, you know what? I'm just going to get through it. I'm just going to get it done. So the importance of taking that time for yourself and focusing on your mental health is paramount. When I'm not great, and I do a lot of good things to take care of myself. As I said, yoga, meditation, medication, not afraid to admit that I take medication. I manage my depression very, very well. And when things are pretty glum for me, my husband knows it. And the way he knows it is I'm quiet, and I'm usually never quiet. I never stop talking. So when I'm quiet, he knows very well. And he will say to me, he's an absolute darling, but he will say to me, what can I do for you? And my answer every single time is exactly the same. All I need for you is to be kind, be patient, and be gentle. And I think those 3 things, even though I say that to my husband and he's heard it a million times and he is very, very much kind, patient, and gentle with me, it took me a long time to actually practice that myself, to say to myself, Kelly, be kind to yourself, be a little bit gentle on yourself, and be really patient with yourself. So, yeah, took a long time to learn, but very powerful words. But once you get it, and once you can look at yourself and say, you know what, I just need to not be so hard on myself. You're going to have terrible days. You're going to have days that you wish didn't happen, but ride the wave get through them, because the next day, as I say, is always likely to be better. And the next day, start again.
Yeah, that's right. It's not just about getting stuck in the mindset of being in those down moments, which can be extremely challenging, and the thoughts that can come up when you're in those dark times can be quite confronting. It's having just that little bit of self-awareness to know this will pass. You don't know how long it will take, but if you're in the moment and, as you say, just let it be, then it will pass. The clouds will part. It will get better.
Yeah.
And whether that's taking medication or that's taking care of yourself or speaking, like doing talk therapy or getting support from other professionals. If you're in a position, if you're experiencing something that is not as positive as you might like, there are ways to make it better. You just need to take the first step.
And I think awareness is the most important thing. No, understanding that this feeling that I'm having, it is something. It is something real. It is something to be acknowledged. It's something to be taken very seriously. It's not just what is wrong with me. I don't understand why. I have a wonderful life. I'm living the dream. I have my own art studio that I make my candles out of and I teach out of. And I know a lot of people would cut off limbs to have that. I get that. I totally get that. I've worked very hard to get to where I am, but I got there in the end. And I have days where I sometimes can't even come out into the studio because it's just a tough day. It might just be, a really tough day. It's not something that happens for me every day. For me, it usually goes in cycles. Every couple of months, I'll start to feel a little bit yucky and a bit crappy. But again, I allow it to be. And when it passes, I just move on and I keep going, and I'm not alone. And that's a really important thing for people to understand, is that you're not alone. You're not the only person. There will be people that will listen to this podcast, I'm sure of it, and will think, you know what, I get it. I understand it. And maybe I shouldn't be afraid to talk about it now. Maybe I should tell my friends that, actually, do you know how I've been a little bit off lately, friends? Well, this is what's been happening. Like, have that conversation. Mental illness is a real thing. It's everywhere, and it's okay. You're okay. You will be okay. Yeah.
I will also mention that as part of this episode, I'll put the links for Beyond Blue and Lifeline in the show notes. So if anyone is wanting to reach out to a professional and just get some support and some advice, you'll have those phone numbers in the links, in the show notes. So I'll link those. So tell me, Kelly, why is having a creative outlet so important for positive mental health?
For me, it's my escape. I've always been a very arty person, always been very creative, and my mind just goes nonstop. So for me, it's my escape. It's my therapy. It also gives me an opportunity to create something new. If I get an idea in my head, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, I've got to do something with that idea. I can't just hang on to that idea. I've got to, even if it's grabbing a notepad and pen and writing down the idea on a piece of paper, I've then released it. I've put it out there. I've done something with it. So for me, coming out to my studio, I can sometimes wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I'll have a combination of colours that will pop into my head, and I think, wow, that's going to make a beautiful resin art piece. So I'll write them down, because no doubt I'll wake up in the morning and forget. And then whenever the time's right, I'll come out to the studio and I'll grab those colours out and I'll mix them up and I'll pour them, and bang, I've created something that's just incredible. And for me, that is my release. That's it's also, I love, as I mentioned, being with other people and creating something as well. Having someone in the room with me, and they're on one side of the studio table and I'm on the other side, and they're pouring something and we're talking at the same time, we're having a conversation. It ends up becoming, I guess, an unofficial therapy session as well. And yeah, having a creative outlet is everything. And for people that think, I'm not creative, I'm not arty, I'm not a writer, I'm not a drawer, doodling is art. If you pick up a notepad and a pen and you draw a flower, and then you draw a border around the flower, and then you put dots inside the petals, it's art. You're creating something. Having a conversation is creating something. Anything that you're doing, you're using creativity. So I encourage anybody, whenever you get any idea in your head, anything at all, even if you think this is the dumbest thing I've ever done, grab a sticky note, grab a pen, jot it down. If you throw it in the bin 20 minutes later, so what? But you've got it out. You've released it. You've put that idea, you're sending that out.
Well, I definitely fall into the camp of not thinking I was creative before I started making candles. My stick figures are nothing to brag about. But when I started making candles and then could just lose hours of time, between of sessions when I'm just lost in the moment and totally immersed in the experience, I realized, oh wow, this is creativity at its finest. This is where we're able to, as you say, just release that positive energy out into the world, and then to be able to create a candle that you can burn yourself or you can sell as a product, to look at it and go, wow, I made that. And the self-pride that you have and the self-confidence that you receive, the more confident that you become with making your candles and your products. It's just incredible. And it's a skill that I believe anyone can do in terms of actually making candles, but to actually hone that skill and become, I won't say a perfectionist at it because I don't believe perfection is real, is something that you're wanting to always improve your skills. So it's a craft. It's something that you're wanting to just immerse yourself in and enjoy the experience. And when you're able to do that on a regular basis, as you say, it is like therapy. It is a relaxation, and it's a way just to release the stresses from everyday life.
For sure. Yeah. And I agree with your comment on perfectionism. It's an evil word to me. When I have people in my class that are trying to do something and they want it to be perfect and they put so much effort and energy into being perfect, I always say to them, look at your arms, look at any piece of skin that's exposed and have a look. And if you see a freckle or a scar, we've all got something on us, a dot, a freckle, a scar, it might be a bit of where you've been in the sun. You've got one part of you that might be a bit pale, one part of you that's tanned. We've all got something on us that isn't quite fantastic. And that is what I say to people when they're trying to achieve perfectionism. If you get something and it's not perfect, you know what? You've done an amazing job. Why? Because you put the effort and the energy into giving it a go, to trying. And this is your thing. This is your product. This is your baby. Everything you've got went into that. Your passion, your everything went into it. And you should be proud of that. And it does not need to be perfect. I wish there was no such word as perfection. I really do. It's a dirty word. To me, it's a dirty word. Nobody's perfect. And let's be real. If we were all perfect, wouldn't the world be a really boring place? Wouldn't it just be, if we didn't have dramas and sagas and a house with a crack in the side of the wall, or a pot that you've spilt over on the stove or something. If we didn't have that sort of thing, life would be very boring, wouldn't it? If everything was always wonderful, I wouldn't like it. That's me anyway.
No, I would agree with that.
When you start your candle business, there are so many things to consider and research along the way, especially when it comes to choosing the right suppliers. Long Story Short provides all your design and printing needs, from your logo and branding to designing and printing your product labels. The quality is exceptional, the customer service is amazing, and prices are very reasonable. They're the only label company I recommend, so check out their website or send them an email today to get started. hello@longstoryshortdesign.com.au.
How has making candles impacted you?
So the biggest joy I have with making candles and how it's impacted me is I discovered my favorite thing about it, and this really does relate to how it's impacted me, is blending fragrances. I love creating new fragrances. I'm all for making candles that are the common fragrances, the ones that everybody loves, but being bold and brave enough to actually pick up two different fragrances and put them on a test stick and smell them together and say, oh my gosh, what is that? What have I done? So it's impacted me in a way that for me, it's I guess, understanding that I have this ability to create something that's a little bit different to what other people have. And for me, don't get me wrong, I've done some stinkers. I've blended some fragrances that have been absolutely terrible, and some of them have made me want to gag and run out of the room, but I've given it a go. So for me, it's coming up with combinations that I think is fantastic. And obviously it doesn't have to be just something I love. You can get a lot of people that think it's an awful combination. So sharing it with friends and getting opinions and what have you is a really important thing. But yeah, for me, it's the impact of it has just been It's another form of therapy, and I'm in a trance-like state when I'm doing my candles. I'm in a trance-like state. It's a very calm. It's a calm art form for me, as opposed to painting or resin art, which is a little bit different. It's very calm, and I'm big on organization. So when I have everything, when I'm ready to do a pour, and I have everything laid out in front of me, and I know I've got a checklist, and I still use it whenever I'm doing a pour. What do I need to grab off the shelf? I need to grab my sticks, my wick bars, my wicks, my wick trimmers, your whole list of things. Once I've got all of that out in front of me and I'm ready to go, that's it for me. I'm in my happy place.
Yeah. Do you normally have a candle burning or music playing when you're pouring?
Always. Yeah, I do. And I'm lucky enough to have an Apple Watch. And the reason I say that is because sometimes I'll put a playlist on and you're really in the zone and you're really connecting with the music, and all of a sudden a song will pop up. And you might have gloves on because you've got fragrance oil all over your hands, or you've got wax everywhere, and it really shifts everything. And no, I don't need this song right now. It's ruining everything. Can quickly touch my Apple Watch and bang, moves on to, the next song. Take a breath, back in the zone.
Or an ad will come on and you're like, no, I don't want a commercial right now. I want to go back to the song.
Yeah, because you really do get into it. Yes, yeah, I do. And always got a fragrance, always got something going on in the background, always. Music, a scent, my favourite. Yep.
Love that. Do you find that most of the students that come through for your candle making classes are more relaxed when they leave?
Oh, 100%. I find, again, because I deal with people with mental health issues and disabilities as well, I find most of my students, probably 99% of them, are very nervous when they first come in because they haven't done a candle class before. They don't know what to expect. I always start my classes in a very calm manner. We always start with a cuppa or a drink, a cold drink or something like that. I'm a bit of a coffee addict. So I've always got a coffee happening. Got one in my hand right now. So I always say, who would like a cuppa? And we start with a chat. So when they come in, the transformation I see when people first come into the studio and they are a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious because they don't know what to expect. And the stuff that's laid out in front of them for classes, there's a lot of stuff. And I'm sure a lot of people have that perception that there's probably going to be a pot to melt wax in and a little glass to pour the wax in and maybe a wick. I think that's what people expect. But when they come in and they see all of the materials laid out, they think, oh my God, have we signed up for the wrong class? Is this the candle making class? Versus they've poured their candle, and my classes are very slow. They're very slow paced. They're not rushed. I've attended a few classes myself. Like anything, when I'm learning something new, I immerse myself in it. And I have attended a couple of different classes with various people. I like to look at other people's teaching styles as well, and I like to kind of from that you get ideas. And I don't mean as in to replicate, but you get ideas. You might attend a class and think, oh, okay, so this person didn't actually have this, whereas I think this would be beneficial, so I'm going to add this to my class. So when people leave my studio, they're very different to the way they are when they walk in. They are extremely calm, relaxed. I get a lot of hugs. They love it. They just love it because they more than anything, what I get is appreciation. People say, Callie, I really didn't realise how much work went in to making a candle. And one thing that I hear a lot is I hear people say, wow, I'll never look at a candle from, we'll say, a department store again, because I won't name any other department stores, but, you can get your candles off the shelf for $6 and $7 and what have you. And once I talk to them about the wax and paraffin and oils and the components and the scientific side of it, their eyes are really opened and they really appreciate how much goes into these people with these candle businesses. Oh, now I understand why you're charging $45 for this big fat candle. I get it now. And yeah. So they always leave very, very grateful. But also empowered, enriched, because a lot of them will come in here and think, I can't do that. Because in my classes, I do a full demonstration for you. I don't just stand in the classroom and say, I need you to pick up A, pour it into B, stir it with C. I don't do that. I sit and do a full demonstration so people get to see exactly what I do. And it's great. From there, they can take notes. And then they get to do their own candles. And again, a lot of my students do need a little bit of assistance. So it's a very calm class. We don't rush anything. My classes are around 3 hours. And that also, I mean, that allows time to not only have a chat, get to know each other. I do my demonstration, they pour their candle. Often by the end of it, they're swapping email addresses. You know, they've formed a friendship, and it's they've bonded over something. And for me, that's why I teach. That's exactly why I teach, just to give people that experience of, creating something beautiful and believing in themselves and understanding that they can do this. Wow. Yeah. And most importantly, they have a newfound appreciation for these people in the candle trade. They really do.
Yes,
they do.
We're an underappreciated bunch.
Very, very true. It's not as easy as, there's so much that goes into it. And that's the thing that probably surprised me the most was the calculation side of it. You've got to get everything right to the gram. If you want, there's just so many different components. And I'm really proud that people leave here and say, wow, next time I'm at a market, I might just stop and smell that person's candles. They won't just look and go, oh, not another candle store, because they realize what goes into it, how much work goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I should have asked this before, but do you want to talk us through why you've called your business Go With The Flow?
So about 7 years ago, I started working with resin, and I've always had this knack for coming up with business names. And I came up, for those of you that aren't aware, resin is a flow medium. So it's a liquid that you pour onto a flat surface, and there's lots of different things that you can do, different tools you can use, and you get different effects. So it's a flow medium. I love the saying, go with the flow. Love it, have loved it for a really long time. If I ever had a friend sitting talking to me about something and it was just constant blah, 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 I would just say to them, stop and take a breath and just go with the flow. Go with the flow of life. It's just a saying that I used a lot. So when I was coming up with the business name, I thought, you know what, resin is a flow medium. Wow, go with the flow. It's the saying that I love. It fits, and it just fits perfectly. So from there, I thought, you know what, I want to name my studio something. So my studio is called Go With The Flow Studio, which has ended up being a really beneficial thing to, I guess, kind of not just be called Go With The Flow Resin Art, because now my studio is a place to create more than one thing, resin and candle. So I had to come up with a name for the candle business, obviously, and I thought, well, what better name than Go With The Flow, because I love it. So Go With The Flow Candle Co. is the candle business. So it's probably a little bit confusing, and don't get me wrong, I have had moments and I thought, oh gosh, am I putting too much out there by having all these different names? But I really wanted to put the Candle Co., I guess, as a business idea, letting people know that the business is selling candles and teaching candle making under Go With The Flow. So the business for the candle making is Go With The Flow Candle Co. And I just think it rolls off the tongue. I think it's beautiful. And it's fitting because, again, it's also a flow medium. You're pouring a liquid into something. It's flowing into something. So it just, I don't know. I'm a big believer in the universe kind of working in mysterious ways. And I just think it's meant to be. That's what I think.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like I'm not religious myself, and I don't think I've mentioned that on the podcast, but I believe that there is, a higher power that's guiding us on our journey through life. And when you release the pretense of having control of everything in your life and just, as you say, go with the flow, there's just this beautiful flow that happens in life that if you just go with it, life just becomes, it's just full of miracles, and it's just full of these wonderful occurrences and wonderful moments that if you stop and have gratitude for them and show your appreciation, then more comes your way.
And reality is we don't have control over a lot of things. What we have control over is what I have control over right now is this very second. That's what I have control over. I don't have control over what's going to happen in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, a bird might fly into the window. I have no control over that. So I know that seems really bleak, but I was actually looking out the window when I said that, and it's the first thing that popped into my head.
Oh, the poor bird.
I know. Sorry, birdies. But we don't have a lot of control over things. So go with the flow. Whatever your day brings you, you just need to go with. I often start my day, it's a bad habit, but sometimes it can be something quite beneficial, but I often start my day scrolling through social media. And I might scroll through Instagram and I'll see an Instagram reel and it might have a song. to it. And I think, oh, I really, really like that song. What's that song? So I'll jump into Spotify or jump into Apple Music and look at the song, and then I'll listen to the song. And instantly that has set precedent for me as to what's going to happen for my day. You know what? This song's made me feel creative. I'm going to head out to the studio today and I'm going to pour some candles. I'm going to create a new fragrance. I'm going to do some labeling. Or it might be something completely different. It could be something that you might look at. It might not feel too fantastic. It might not always be a happy, positive experience. But from that, something will occur. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is just go with the flow, because you really don't know what's coming at you. You don't know what's going to happen around the corner. So whatever life throws at you, just go with it. Go with it.
I love that. What do you think is the hardest part about making candles? Like, what do you find the most challenging?
For me, it's probably labeling, creating labels. So my labels on my candles, I have a positive affirmation on my labels. And I've got a ton of them. I live by positive affirmations. So for me, it's creating a label and also creating a name for my scent. So if I'm blending a scent and I'm creating something new, I want to create something that's eye-catching, something that people can look at, but also relate to. As for example, if I created a candle and I called it Bliss, someone might walk into a gift shop and pick up my candle and say, Bliss. Well, what the hell's Bliss? Okay, no, it smells nice. But I think by having a label and you've got something written on the label, but in the same breath, I'll say being very cautious not to put too much information on your label that people look at it and think, oh God, it's like the Herald Sun. I don't have time to read this. I think it's important to get your label spot on, have the right amount of information on there, but also have something that draws people in aside from the fragrance. So we can all be in a candle shop or in a gift shop or at a market, and we all pick up the candles and we all smell them and say, For me, it's looking at a label. For me, the hardest part is creating that, getting the labels perfect, having the right amount of information on the labels, not having my labels too busy. Obviously, when you're selling your candles, you want to have your company name on there, obviously. So it's a bit tricky. It's a long one for me. Go with the flow, Candle Co. Mornington. So yeah, the biggest challenge for me is not actually making the candles, because I love every second of it, but it's the label. It's sitting down and working out what should I throw a color in here? If I'm using a clear jar, what should I do? If I'm doing a candle with a bit of marbling, I don't want to have too much on the label. Do I even want a label if I've got a candle with marbling? Because I want the marbling to be the thing that draws people in, but I also want people to know who I am. So yeah, that sounds a bit strange, but for me, it's got to be the labeling. It's the thing that probably does my head in the most is the labeling. I try and keep them eye-catching, interesting, not too overpowering, but have enough information that people would look at it and say, oh wow, oh I really like that, yeah, or are drawn in by what's written on there.
Yeah.
One of the little sayings I've got, just picking one, I'm just looking at my collection in front of me. It's one that I use a lot. It's very simple. Very little is needed to make a happy life. And it's for me, it works for me if I'm somewhere and I see a positive affirmation or I see a saying or something like that, and I'm drawn into it and I think, I really like that. I want to know more about that. I want to know who wrote that. I want to know it's on a candle. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, smell it. Oh, that's amazing. I'll buy that. So yeah.
It's multi-layered.
It really is. There's so much that goes into it, but the labeling, man, whole thing on its own.
Oh, too funny. What are your goals for your candle business?
My goals are I'd like to be in more shops. If I'm away on holidays, which is really rare, I don't get much time away, but I was very lucky a couple of months ago. I got about 5 days away. My sister came down to look after my dad. So my husband and my son and I got a chance to get away for a couple of days, and we went to a place called Bright in Victoria. It's my favourite place. I love Bright, and there's a certain gift shops there. I call them my top 5. I visit them every time I'm there. Probably keep them afloat, to be honest with you, when I'm there. But I again, when I was in there, I was looking at candles and I was looking at labels, and some of them really drew me in. And I thought, you know what, my goal is to get into more shops, have my product in more shops. I want to be spread around a little bit more. Yeah. And also the online side of things, online marketing. and having an online shop. I really want to expand on that. I haven't done a lot of it because I'm so busy with the classes and creating my product that I sell. And I sell mostly to family, friends. I've got friends that have got Airbnbs and they buy my candles. But I really, really want to branch out. This year, I want to be really brave, really bold, and I want to get my candles out there and just be, I'd like to be, for me, it would be nice for somebody to say, oh my gosh, I know your candle. Yes, it's amazing. It's beautiful. And yeah, for me, it's to kind of grow, get out there a little bit more.
How do you find social media and using social media for your business?
To be honest with you, I'm a bit slack with it. And the reason why is I had a very busy year with classes last year. I'm pretty routine as far as normally Monday is, I call it a free day, and whatever I want to do on the Monday, I do. If it's clean my house, I do it. If it's catch up with a girlfriend, I do it. I'm very lucky I don't have little kids at home anymore. They're all grown up. They're all at work and at uni, and so it's wonderful. So if Monday is normally my kind of free day. Tuesday is teaching day. Wednesday is an admin day. Thursday is a teaching day. Friday is a free / admin day. So if there's something else, that comes up, then that's what I'll do. So I'll admit I've been a little bit slack when it comes to social media as far as the advertising side of it, because I've just been so inundated with classes. This year, I made the decision that I'm really going to restructure things, and I want to switch things up a little bit and really put more effort and energy into the social media side of things. Even if it's not so much for the promotion side of things, I'm always encouraged when I'm looking at somebody on social media and they're recording a video of themselves. And it's real and it's raw and it's natural, and they might have a bad day. They might drop the F-bomb. They might show a picture of a candle that they've made that's just completely done what they didn't want it to do. I'm in awe of that kind of thing. I'm in awe of what I don't like is people always airbrushing everything and trying to portray their life as being perfect and wonderful on social media. I can't stand it. It does my head in. I like to see real, honest, raw. That's what I like. So for me, that's the goal this year. I would like to have the camera out a little bit more and, just kind of show a little bit of stuff that people can look at and relate to and go, oh, God, I'm glad I'm not the only one who did that, or glad I'm not the only one who made that mistake. So, social media, definitely need to put a little bit more time into it. Last year wasn't able to, as I said, but this year I'm making more time for it. I'd definitely like to put a little bit more time into it, but in saying that, I'm not reaching for perfectionism. I'm not reaching to put something out there that people look at and say, oh, wow, isn't that no? Because let's be real, sometimes you can have a shitty day. Sometimes things aren't fantastic. And I think it's really important that people, I know that and know that it's okay.
Yeah, life is more than just the highlight reels.
100%. Yeah. I like to see the real stuff, the raw stuff. I like to see. Yep. So you may see some videos of me crying or having a bit of a tantrum. So anyway, it's me.
That's just life. But it's true. Like, if you're able to show who you really are to your followers and your customers, they can connect in with you as a person, not just you as a business person or a businesswoman, and they can feel like they really, know, like, and trust you, so that when it comes time to you having a sale or a new product release, they're more inclined to purchase from you if you're looking at it from a business point of view. But just from a human and connection point of view, like, to connect in with someone that's being themselves and not showing this the form of perfectionism, it makes sense that we connect more with those sorts of people that share that side of their life, because that's part of our life as well. Like, we can resonate with it a lot more.
Yeah. So true. True. Yeah. So keep your eyes out.
So I just want to circle back to something that we chatted about earlier, and that's women in business. This is a bit of a random question, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think that women have it harder than men when it comes to having a small business?
Personally, I don't. And the reason why is probably because I can only speak for myself, but I'm pretty ballsy. I'm pretty gutsy. I wouldn't let anything pass me by. If I felt disadvantaged in any way, as a woman in business, I would not be afraid to stand my ground and stand up for myself, speak up for myself and say, hang on a second, and go for it. That's for me personally. I guess I can only really compare my business to other businesses that are alike. So I don't have a competition that is a man who's running the show and I'm really feeling disadvantaged because he's got this going on, he's got that going on. So maybe it's a little bit of an unfair statement because I can't really compare because I don't have that to compare to. I think I never like to be pushed around. I never like to be bullied. I never like to be I like to be treated as an equal. And I feel, as far as from a business perspective, when I'm dealing with some of my suppliers and the businesses are run by men, I don't feel disadvantaged at all, not at all. I feel as an equal. And if ever I did, I would 100% stand up for myself and say, no, just hang on a second, just because I'm a woman in business, you can't do that to me. And how dare you? And I would, though. I've been raised like that, I guess, a little bit tough. So personally, I don't feel disadvantaged, but I do understand that there would be some people that probably would.
I feel like given the industry that we're in, as in candle making, it's predominantly a female-driven industry. So the suppliers that we're dealing with, whether they are run by males or females, most of their clientele will be females. So we're sort of in this particular niche where there are a lot of us and we're the majority rather than being the minority.
Yeah, that's true. So you're right. So maybe it was a bit of an unfair thing to say. You're right. But no, I don't, because I'm never afraid to stand up for myself and call something out if I feel that it needs to be called out. I wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah. So what's been one of your biggest wins in your business?
For me, look, there's a lot. For me, I don't know if it's so much a win from a business perspective or from a financial perspective, but more so it's more an experience, if that's something that I can touch on. And for me, the win for me is the experience of having people opening up and sharing information about themselves, and getting back to the mental health side of things, of course. I've had a lot of little wins along the way, of course, creating specific fragrances. There's one specific fragrance that I came up with recently that was a big win for me. I was so in awe of it. I loved it. It was just a blend. I put something together. We had a theme for a family, Kris Kringle, and there was a particular theme, so I had to come up with something that was from that category. And I thought, maybe I've got something in that category, and I've got something in that, and I blended it. And for me, that was a win. For me, I don't look at a win as necessarily something that has to be a financial win. I don't look at, I've just sold 300 candles to wholesaling 300 candles. I don't look at it like that. I really don't. For me, it's the joy that it brings me, and it's the happiness, and probably the favorite part of my whole experience when I'm teaching my classes, my candle classes, is the joy of watching people into the room, not understanding, not believing that they're going to be able to actually create something, and then 3 hours later they're different. Their shoulders are relaxed. They're breathing differently. They're relaxed. They're hugging each other. They're swapping email addresses and phone numbers, and they're hugging me, and they're saying, "Kelly, that was an amazing experience." And I know for some people that might be a little difficult to understand. But remember that I'm talking about people that might not have a big social outlet. They might not have a lot of activities that they can participate in where they're with like-minded people or with people that suffer the same issues that they suffer. So for me, I think the mental health side, working with clients that are impacted by mental health issues and seeing them come in tense, very anxious sometimes, and walking out just almost feeling like I've just done a session of yoga. For me, that's my win. That for me is everything. Yeah.
I love that. It's so pure and beautiful, and such a lovely part of life to be able to give that experience to others, multiple people over multiple sessions over time. So it's it's beautiful that you're able to create that good energy in the world. Yeah,
definitely. I'm proud of that. That's the thing I'm most proud of, for sure. Yeah.
So to flip the script, what's been your biggest challenge then?
Probably myself, not believing that I could do it at the beginning. what happens if I start this business and I advertise and people are like, oh, well, I don't really want to do that and I'm not interested in that and I can go to a department store and da 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 da, and that's a lot of money to spend. And for me, my biggest challenge definitely was the start of it all, when I just thought, oh, I don't think it's going to work. It's a terrible idea. What were you thinking, Kelly? You've got all these ideas in your head. What are you doing? It's going to fail. It's going to fail. And not believing in myself, not believing that it was going to work and it was going to be successful. For me, that was probably the biggest challenge. But I have a saying. I know I have a lot of sayings. I say to people, I have this saying. I should write a book. But the saying is, you start with nothing, you end with nothing, you've lost nothing. And that's kind of what I thought when I first started. I thought, you know what, you got nothing to lose here, girl. Just jump in and do it. And if it doesn't work, well, you know what, you can say, well, that's an experience. I don't believe in mistakes. I don't believe in the word mistakes. There's no such thing as a mistake. To me, it's a lesson. Everything is a lesson. So starting off, biggest challenge was definitely just having being full of doubt, so much self-doubt, like it's a terrible idea and no one's going to be interested and da, 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 da. And what do you got to lose, girlfriend? Throw caution to the wind. If it doesn't work, well, you can say this is another experience in your life. And if it does work, well, fantastic. But now it's not only worked, but it's making a difference to other people. And for me, that's my happiness right there. For me, that is my success. Seeing people happy with something that I contributed to, for me, ultimate. Yep. Yeah. Doesn't get better.
I can see and feel your passion about helping others. And that comes from your previous professional experience, as well as your own business experience now with teaching classes. Yeah, so I'm curious, have any of your past students opened up their own candle business?
No, they haven't actually. It's a really good question, because there are some local candle businesses near me that I've got a great association with, really, really positive association. And they're very big also on community and not competition. They're great support. And, in the early days, somebody did ask me that question. And I said to them, look, it was a worry of mine that people, obviously, if I'm teaching this craft, there might be people that say, oh, God, we can do that. Oh, she makes it look easy, yada, yada, no worries at all. But people don't. And I think the reason is, once they've seen the demonstration and they realise how much goes into it, I think a lot of them think, you know what, it's fun to do. And I have had many return students, and they return at certain times of year, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, because they want to make a candle for a loved one for an event coming up. And they had such a good time in the class that they'll come back, and that's the opportunity for them to do it again. So to answer your question, no, nobody has. The resin art, yes, somebody has, but the candle business, no, nobody has. And again, as I mentioned, when they walk into the studio and I've got all the workstations set up and they've got this visual, and on the table is, and I wish I had a list in front of me, a calculator, the scale, wipes, gloves, just to name a few. There's probably about, I think I counted, there's 16 different things that I have to get out. I have these little trays and I put all the things in the trays. 16 different things that I get out. And that's not even the wax. We haven't even moved over to the station where the wax pots are. So I think when people look at that and then they see the demonstration and they do the candle, they really realise, wow, there's so much that goes into this, so much more than I thought. And if I invest this money and do this thing and I don't get it right, and I always tell people that it took me a long time to get a perfect hot throw and a perfect cold throw. And it did, months and months, as I mentioned, of testing, a lot of testing. No. To answer your question, nobody does. And I think other candle makers listening would probably say, I understand why, I get it, because it's big. There's a lot to do.
Yes. I think when people first start, I know that when people first start their journey, they believe that the making candles is easy. So once you actually buy the supplies, get involved in the process and get down into the nitty gritty of it, you realize how big of a journey it's going to be. But I would love to know how many people buy a kit, give it a crack, and then stop and not continue the passion. There are so many candle makers out there that we know of. So I'd be interested to see how many more people have tried it and not continued.
Yeah. That's a good question. It'd be interesting to know. Yeah. And YouTube makes everything look easy. We all know that. And even a kit, you can buy a kit from a class and you can go home and say, I'm going to give this a go. And then it's not that simple. That, you know, there's one fragrance oil in there and there might be 2 jars, and it's not that simple. When I first started, I went into a place that sold candle stuff and said, look, and they had some vessels up on the shelf, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. I'll just grab 3 of those. I do everything in 2s and 3s. Grabbed 3 of those. I grabbed 3 individual wicks, 3 wicks, and I went over and the guy said to me, so have you made candles before? And I said, no, I'm just something I'm interested in. This was a few years ago. And he said, well, you need to have the right size wick for the vessel. And I said, what do you mean? And I was like, what? And I was instantly put off. I thought, oh my God, I felt like an idiot. I thought, but put it back on the shelf, come home, did the research, learned, that's what they're talking. That's the diameter. That's what that means. What's this hot throw business? What's this cold throw business? Thermometer? What do you mean I need a thermometer? What the? Pour too early, you burn your oil off. No, oh gosh, there's just so much involved in it. So,
and there's so many acronyms. There's just so many.
Oh yes, absolutely, there are. Yeah, there are.
Once you know it, it's not so overwhelming and not so confronting. But it's just that process of figuring it all out and yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And you know, there's a wax that's very popular, the 464, and I think a lot of the sites that I look on when I was learning were American sites, and they were using 464. Well, that must be the wax that you use. And then I quickly realised, what's it? Oh, cocoa soy. What is that? What? No, it was just a whole new language. It was just so much to learn. And once you expand and then you jump on and Google everything, you think, I don't want to spend $80 on this bag of wax if it's going to be not what I need. And I should use a different wax for wax melts. Why? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, there really is. But once you've got it, it's magical. It's once you've got it and you're set up, it is magical to be able to just come in and say, you know what, I'm just going to sit here and just relax, be calm, and just smell this and combine this. And it's amazing.
And put some music on and just go with the flow.
Absolutely. It's exactly right. Yep.
So we've come to my favorite part of the podcast, where I ask all my guests 3 questions. So number 1, what is your favorite candle fragrance?
For me, at the moment, and I know it's like everybody, I think it changes. I'm really, really, really in love with Kakadu Water Lily. It's an LCS fragrance, which is Luxury Candle Supplies. I love it. I get lost in it. Have you smelt that before?
No, I haven't. It sounds beautiful though.
It is. It's amazing. It is really, truly amazing. There's a lot. I'm not big on the vanillas. I know some people love vanilla. Me, I don't like it at all, but I do have a lot of vanillas and a lot of vanilla in my candles. But yeah, for me, Kakadu Water Lily at the moment is, it's heaven. It is just the bomb. I've been with that for a couple of months now, and I haven't really come across anything that's taken its spot, but loving that. If you get an opportunity, please have a smell.
I might have to do some online shopping after our call.
Yes, it is beautiful.
Number 2, what do you love about candles?
It's the flicker of the flame. That's truly what it is. You know, when you're away camping and you're sitting around a campfire, and have you ever had the experience of just sitting around a campfire and just staring at the flame? You just stare, and there's this moment where it's poetic almost, but there's silence around the campfire. You know, people are chatting, and then suddenly there's just this great silence, and you're looking at this flame and you're watching and you're hearing it crack, and it becomes mesmerizing. You just become entranced. For me, obviously the fragrance that it puts out is wonderful, and even looking at a pretty vessel is amazing. But for me, the thing that gets right to the core of me every time is watching the flame flicker, watching the flame dance. I just love it. It just takes me back to sitting around a fire, being at my happy place, camping, and just losing myself. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And then the last question, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to candle makers during their journey?
Be brave. Believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to experiment with different things. Don't be afraid to blend your oils together you will come up with some stinkers, but you'll also come up with some things that might just be the thing that makes or breaks you. It might just be the thing that keeps you going. The fragrance that I mentioned that I created recently that I'm madly in love with. When I enter my studio, I smell it. I pick up that candle and I smell it because it's a wax melt that I've got going on as we speak in the background. And I love it. It just puts me in a mood. So I say to people, to anyone thinking about starting, don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to experiment with different oils. You might come across one that's just a stock standard oil that you absolutely love. When you're measuring it out, if you need 13 grams of it, split it in two. Pick an even number. Go easy on yourself. 14 grams of it. Split it in two. Put 7 grams of that in. Pick another fragrance randomly and put 7 grams of that in and just smell it. See how you go. You just might come up with something and go, wow. And it kind of shifts things a little bit. So be brave, be bold, believe in yourself, and don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to give it a go. What have you got to lose? Yeah.
No, I love that. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, covering some beautiful topics that require much more conversation, more than what this little podcast can hold. But it's a good starting point for people that might be on a part of their journey where they might need a little bit of assistance. So I'm glad that we've touched on the mental health aspect of running a business, women in business as well, and of course, beautiful candles. For the listeners that would love to get in touch with you, where can they find you online?
So on Insta at GoWithTheFlow_CandleCo, and Facebook is the same. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll leave links in the show notes. So if anyone wants to get in touch and let you know what they thought of this episode, they'll be able to do that. Or if they're interested in doing one of your classes, or if they just want to connect in with you, they'll be able to do that through the show notes.
That'd be great. And thank you so much. It's been, I've loved our chat, loved every second of it. I've probably gone on a little bit too much, but that's what I do.
No, I love it. No, it's been perfect.
Yeah. No. I hope that people, really listen to it and really understand that it's okay to not be fantastic. You don't have to be up all the time. Yeah.
That's perfect. Right. No, I love it. And as I said earlier in the episode, I'll leave some links to Beyond Blue and Lifeline if anyone does need to connect in with a professional.
Great. Amazing. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate your time.
Lovely. Thanks so much.
Thanks everyone for listening today. I hope this episode added value to your candle making journey. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout today's show, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for listening. Have a beautiful day.